Hello beautiful people, I am Nikki and this is a night of horror where I talk horror movies and sometimes other genres and TV shows. But in this video, I will be talking horror and specifically the best horror movies coming to streaming right now in September. See, I was supposed to been do this, but we're here now. We're only 7 days in. Look, it's fall, the best time of the year, my favorite season. And you know, I watch horror all year round, but I know that for a lot of people, they like to get into their seasonal horror watches. So I will be breaking down the best horror movie recommendations to watch on each of the major streaming services. Nice, if you've forgotten, let me remind you that it is still support or die.
Take your best shot. Mother.
Now, you will not have to weed through the new available horror movies coming to streaming to find a good watch because I got you. And we all know searching streaming for a movie can take as long as the movie. No wasting time, just some good horror. So let's get right into it. And this is not all the horror streaming, just the best ones coming in September. So coming to Netflix in September, we have Jaws 1 through 3. If you're new on my channel, I don't play the genre semantics game. Tons of movies are genre mashups, and Jaws is one of those multi-genre films. I absolutely consider it to be in the realm of horror. Now, I do enjoy Jaws 1 and 2, but Jaws 2 is my personal favorite. I think it's better than the original. Is that a hot take? I do want to do a video on underrated horror sequels because people always talk about Jaws and how iconic it is, but don't sleep on Jaws 2. Now, this video is supposed to be horror movies coming to streaming in September, like I said, but Netflix is lacking. I don't know if they're going to make up for it with the new horror that they're going to bring in October, but they're lacking in September. So I am also going to throw in a few horror movies already streaming and available on Netflix that are a few of my personal faves and that I think should be on your fall horror watch list. Incantation, one of only 2 found footage movies I actually like. This is a foreign film about a curse. It is not the run-of-the-mill curse story or found footage movie. I hate found footage and actually watched this because I didn't know it was found footage. Highly recommend. Okay, let me stop doing so much talking and just get y'all the movies, okay? We're just gonna do a quick rundown, quick list. So this is just a quick video with some movies to add to your watch list. A lot of people trash talk this next movie, but I actually had a lot of fun with it. If you can get past the empty influencer characters and pointless legacy character, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022, really solid action and gore. Just don't think too hard about things. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 is one of those turn your brain off, entertaining enough way to kill time type of movies. A classic horror story from 2021. A group becomes stranded in the country and in the countryside and have to fight for survival after finding themselves in a strange house. Such a surprise sleeper hit. I don't know why nobody talks about this movie. His House from 2020 follows a refugee couple who, after escaping their war-torn homeland, find themselves faced with evil. Really driven by the amazing performances and top-tier horror elements. The Perfection from 2018 follows a troubled music prodigy who starts down a path of sinister and terrifying turns. This one leans more into thriller territory. I suggest going in knowing as little as possible, though honestly, I'm a broken record. If you've been on my channel, I think it is best to go into every movie pretty much as blind as possible for the best experience. The Ritual from 2017, such a gem of a movie. The Ritual follows a group of old friends who take a trip to the sweetest countryside after experiencing a tragedy. A really solid folk horror type of movie, very effectively creepy. Before I Wake from 2016, I feel like this is a really underrated Mike Flanagan movie. I hear, you know, people always talk about Dr. Sleep, Oculus, but do not sleep on Before I Wake. This one follows a couple who quickly discover that their newly adopted son can manifest his dreams in real life. And if you can manifest your dreams, of course that means you can manifest your nightmares. This isn't a straightforward horror movie movie, but another sleeper hit in my humble opinion. Great visuals and performances, and I mean, it's Mike Flanagan, so just watch it. Life from 2017. Now, give it a chance, because people are not giving Life a chance. They are just calling it just slamming the movie and calling it an Alien ripoff. And I'm not saying it ain't an Alien ripoff, but I am saying it's a good motherfucking movie. Consider this a bargain brand Alien that actually delivers. And my last recommendation streaming on Netflix is Bone Tomahawk, a Western horror mashup that delivers one of the most shocking moments for me in recent years. If you're a fan of Westerns, and how they tend to have a slow build type of pacing, more character driven type of formula, this will be right up your alley. It is all of that with some horror mixed in. I gotta get back into my Western bag, because that's how I got into this. I was trying to get into the Western genre, which isn't my cup of tea. Now, if you are not a fan of a slow building type of story, the first two halves, it may not really excite you, but you gotta stay. Do not DNF. The third act shenanigans are well worth it. And now I will get into the best horror movies coming to Peacock in September. I mentioned underrated horror sequels earlier. Well, we have another one. Halloween 3 Season of the Witch. Admittedly, I am not a huge Halloween fan. I think it's overhyped. I love the atmosphere they create there in 3, and I feel like big risk gave us big rewards. I can see this one, though, not being for everyone. Insidious and Insidious Chapter 2. We, of course, follow a family haunting, astral projection, James Wan, Lee Winnell, some iconic jump scares, though the loud, jarring music irks me. But other than that, these are two gems. Get Out, the Jordan Peele hit debut horror movie about a black guy who visits his white girlfriend's parents and mayhem ensues. Those will be the only top notable movies, because I really wanted to get into some lesser known horror movies that I don't hear people talk about, but I had to talk about those three, okay? Because it's Insidious and Get Out. The Frighteners from 1996, about a man played by Michael J. Fox who, after a tragic car accident, is able to communicate with the dead, and he uses this gift to con people and make a living. But after seeing a demonic spirit, he tries to stop it from killing people while also dodging an agent who thinks that it is in fact Michael J. Fox's character doing these murders. One of the few comedy horrors that I truly love. This is on the Mount Rushmore of comedy horror movies for me, and where this movie gets it right is a great blend of comedy and horror. One does not overshadow the other. You get sufficient horror as well as sufficient comedy mashed up. The Forever Purge from 2021, admittedly a very disjointed franchise as far as quality, but I had a lot of fun with this sequel in The Forever Purge. It is just as it sounds. The rules are broken and lawlessness ensues as folks decide, baby, the purge just ain't gonna never end. Very on the nose with the racial themes and social commentary. But if that stuff doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother me. There's a lot of entertainment value you can get from the Forever Purge. I know that the horror community hates prequels, okay? But I don't. I love a prequel, okay? Exorcist The Beginning from 2004. Wait, okay, don't turn the video off. Give me a chance, okay? Exorcist The Beginning follows the priest from The Exorcist, but it is when he was younger. Of course, it's a prequel. He comes face to face with evil at an archaeological dig in Kenya. One thing with prequels and sequels and why I think I am able to enjoy them more than most, nothing is the original. And I don't know why that even has to be said. Is it a joy when a sequel surpasses or lives up to the original? Of course it is. But come on, you cannot expect movies that follow behind iconic horror movies to live up to the original. I pretty much just take sequels as standalone films in the sense that I don't compare them to the original. Well, Most times I don't, because Scream 4, 5, and 6, I'm judging you. I really love Bill Skarsgård daddy, okay? In Exorcist the Beginning, he's great here. We get a solid horror thriller story. I really think that people judge this without giving it a fair chance. And people don't like prequels because they also say, oh, well, we know where it's going to go. This story has absolutely nothing to do with Reagan them, okay? It's a standalone. It's just a prequel of that priest coming face to face with evil and fighting evil. If I remember the movie really well, it was his first time fighting evil. The Skeleton Key from 2005. I have talked about this movie countless times on my channel. It is beyond underrated, so I will never stop talking about it. A hospice nurse working in New Orleans finds herself engaged in a mystery involving the house's dark past. What a gem of a movie. Such an iconic ending and iconic horror elements here. Slither from 2006. A small town is taken over by an alien plague that turns the residents into mutant monsters. Comedy, horror, gore. The movie is disgusting, but it is so damn fun. Very much has the feel of like the classic B movie 80s. It very much gives The Blob. And now we are moving over to Shudder. We have Oddity, the 2024 new release about a psychic who tries to uncover the truth behind her sister's murder. I feel like Oddity was very much matching my freak in surprising ways. All of the actors were a joy, even the unlikable character. I love the style, the location of the movie. The biggest flaw in the movie is that where things go, honestly, is pretty predictable, standard fare, but the packaging is really unique and sufficiently kept me engaged. Really the first horror movie this year I've been impressed with. You know, if you've been on my channel, I did my worst horror movies of 2024 so far. I have not been impressed with this year. The People Under the Stairs from 1991 follows a kid named Fool who breaks into the house of his slumlords to help his family who are about to be kicked out onto the street. A Wes Craven classic as far as I am concerned. Black horror classic and very underrated horror icons with the brother and sister, mommy, daddy characters. When we talk horror icons, we always talk Chucky, Jason, Freddy. We need to mention the brother and sister, the mommy and daddy from The People Under the Stairs. And now we have our new horror movies coming to Prime in September. We have the Species franchise, but the only one I am vouching for is the original Species from 1995. It is a motherfucking classic. Okay, argue with your mama. After creating an alien-human hybrid that he now wants to kill, a scientist recruits a team to successfully hunt her down after she escapes. Now, Species 2 is entertaining, but after that, no. I only really acknowledge the first two, and Species 2 is pretty generic and honestly not very well made, but I still get a little entertainment value out of it. But I don't revisit it nearly as often as I revisit the original Species, though. That's the one. That is a real sci-fi horror gem. I don't care. Stigmata from 1999 follows a woman who becomes afflicted by the stigmata, which is basically everything that happened to Christ when he was crucified happens to her. A priest is sent out to investigate, and this has severe ramifications for his faith and the Catholic Church. I love a religious horror. I know folks be sick and over religious horror, but stuff like The Prophecy, that's just right up my alley. I love it. So this is right there for me. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 from 1986. A radio host is victimized by the cannibal family as a former Texas Marshal hunts them down. We have a young Dennis Hopper here. This movie has a lot of elements that I usually don't like in 80s horror, but why does it work like magic here? TCM original. It's a good movie. Again, not anything I'm crazy about. I think it's overhyped, but this right here, I'm obsessed with the sequel. This is so good. It's batshit insane. And we have a really iconic jump scare in this one. This movie is so unhinged and I love it. Speaking of those underrated horror sequels, Red Eye from 2005, way more thriller than horror, but such an underrated Wes Craven movie. I never hear anyone talk about this one either. And y'all know that's what I love to do. I love to talk about those movies that not everybody talks about. A woman is kidnapped by a stranger while on a flight who is threatening to kill her father if she does not help him to assassinate someone else. It gets ridiculous, yes, but is it a good thriller if it doesn't teeter over into ridiculousness and like You gotta suspend some belief. I think this one has aged really well and definitely still holds up. It is just as fresh as when I saw it in high school. Devil from 2010. I did recently talk about this when I did my video on whether M. Night Shyamalan even has enough good movies for a top 10 best. And I mentioned this one, not directed by M. Night, but written by him. A group of people end up trapped on an elevator when they start to die one by one. A cop tries to figure out what is going on and how to get everyone out of the elevator before everybody is dead. If this were an M. Night movie, it would be top 4 easy. Easy. It ventures more into thriller, mystery than horror, but it does have some horror elements. It is a really solid story and all around solid movie. Cape Fear from 1991. Now, I tried to stay away from the known hits, like I said, when making this list, but I'm including Cape Fear because I am shocked and appalled at how many people have never seen this movie. A convict stalks the family of the lawyer who defended him. Robert De Niro is unhinged, so just watch it. No, but okay, this movie is damn near perfect from top to bottom. Another one that's more thriller, psychological thriller than horror. But if Madman Max Cady being after you isn't horror, I don't know what is. Now we have the movies that are coming to stream on Tubi. Tubi got a ton. Tubi got a ton that came in September. Look, I hope y'all are not sleeping on Tubi. They have the best horror section of any streaming service. Tons of gems from every decade. The Blob from 1988. I literally consider this one of the greatest horror movies of all time and one of the greatest remakes of all time. It is an injustice and crime against humanity that I do not hear folks talk about the blob organism when y'all be talking about the horror icons. When y'all be talking about Freddy, mention the Blob. An organism from space crash lands near a small town and begins consuming the town's folks. Body horror, sci-fi horror, iconic final girl, iconic final guy, black horror villain, which is rare as hell in horror. This is one of those movies that made me a gore fiend as a kid. Hide and Seek from 2005. A widower grapples with his daughter's imaginary friend after a tragedy. If they had the guts to give Hide and Seek the ending it deserved, it could have gone down in history, but it is still a really good standard mystery horror thriller that non-movie savvy fans may not see as predictable. The performances are good, the atmosphere is good, the twists and turns are fun to go along even if you predict the outcome of the movie. I've always just really enjoyed it. House on a Haunted Hill from 1999. An amusement park mogul offers a group of strangers $1 million. How did he do it? Was it this? To spend the night in a haunted house. Some genuinely iconic horror visuals and horror effects here. I've talked about this one on my channel a few times. One of my favorite movies from when I was a kid. I consider this to be a horror classic and an iconic remake. Okay? Don't argue with me. Underwater from 2020. A crew working for a deep sea drilling company tried to get to safety by crossing the ocean floor. Really iconic sci-fi horror to come out in recent years. I have a horrid fear of the ocean, and in particular deep sea scares the hell out of me. I just feel like we don't have no idea what's down there, child. It could be anything. Movies like this are why I get so confused when people talk about the horrible state of modern movies. Like, every decade has gems and every decade has duds, and Underwater is definitely a gem. I think it is safe to say that the sequels that the Conjuring universe spawned, i.e. The Nun, Annabelle, are pretty lackluster, but one gem that shines amongst the bunch is coming to Paramount Plus. Let's get into the movies coming to Paramount Plus, well, horror movies, in September. Annabelle Creation from 2017. Years after the tragic death of their daughter, a doll maker and his wife welcome a nun and orphan girls to live in their home. Everything the other spin-off movies get wrong, Annabelle Creation gets right. It's kind of like how they did, you know, Ouija Origin of Evil being better than the original. And I love a horror prequel, but this is a horror prequel of the prequel, Below from 2002. When I was younger, I used to always call this movie U571 with horror. Now, if you don't know U571, check that out. It's not horror, but it's a gem. The crew of a Navy submarine during World War II rescue survivors of a sunken ship and end up facing a series of mysterious deaths and occurrences. I swear, I have spent my life wondering why people don't talk about the movies I just grew up loving. Like, nobody talks about Below, and I don't get it. So I won't beat a dead horse and repeat myself about U571. The horror remix. Below. Great mix of action horror, mystery horror, thriller horror. The pacing is great. They do a really good job like stretching the suspense. Phenomenal performances drives this one. Carriers from 2009. A lethal virus spreads globally and four friends seek a safe haven. While trying to avoid the infection, the survivors begin to turn on each other. I want to say this was the first time I saw Chris Pine. I think this was before Star Trek. Don't quote me. Don't quote me. Carriers takes this like virus outbreak idea, apocalyptic idea, and does something really interesting with it. I enjoy this movie. Now, I will say, I have not seen this since 2009. So I hope it's aged well, considering the fact that I'm recommending it. I feel like the human nature pandemic and stuff that happens in this, even though it's a slow burn, I don't think it's ever boring because I feel like all of that hits close to home. The Gift from 2000, a psychic tries to find a missing young socialite. Really classic thriller, supernatural horror that will keep you hanging on from beginning to end. I'm really excited to give this a rewatch because I have not watched this movie in like 20 some odd years, so I'm hyped for that one. So hopefully, again, it has aged well since I'm recommending it. The Haunting from 1999. A doctor enlists volunteers to participate in what they think is a sleep study, but it is actually a fear study, if I remember correctly. I really need to rewatch some of these before I be recommending them. This is a good haunted house film that I remember from being a kid. One of my faves, along with House on 100 Hill, that I used to have on repeat. Now, if you watch this for the first time, I cannot guarantee that nostalgia is not the reason why I give glowing recommendations when it comes to this movie. The Haunting is, nothing groundbreaking. It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it is a solid horror movie. The Loved Ones from 2009, another movie with iconic horror icons I never hear mentioned. And I actually just rewatched this last night. After a teen turns down his classmate's invitation to the prom, he ends up kidnapped and tortured by her and her father. This movie is brutal. This movie is unhinged. The Loved Ones is not your standard torture horror. I consider this one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Am I going too far saying that? I don't want to hype it up, but it's good. Mimic from 1997. A doctor creates an insect to kill off cockroaches and 3 years later discover the insect has mutated and is breeding and out to get their only predator, which is mankind. Not predator. We ain't a predator to them. Okay, let's start this over. I am so hyped that a ton of my favorite childhood movies are coming to streaming in October. In September. I done jumped a month ahead. But maybe we should add some channel watch-alongs. But look, Mimic, we have Mira Sorvino, Charles S. Dutton, Guillermo del Toro, creature feature, gore. What more do you need? Overlord from 2008. A small group of American soldiers find horror behind enemy lines when they discover Nazi experiments. I have talked about this movie and recommended this movie on my channel ad nauseum. But I'm going to keep recommending it because nobody talks about this movie. I really want to do a full video on this. Maybe I'll do that for the fall season. But I won't rehash things since I've talked about it so much. Body horror, solid story, great action horror mashup. And that is my list of the best horror that is coming to streaming in September. Nice. We have tons of content coming. I still have my Alien franchise ranking on the way. Check out my video on Alien Romulus if you haven't. I also have my video on Terminator Zero. It will either be up before this video or after this video. So look out for it or go watch it. The Worst Ex Ever documentary, I have that posted. I will be revisiting the Penny Dreadful series Every Saturday, I do my live horror panel series, KillerCon, where we have killer conversation. We do all kind of fun things when it comes to horror. The Mike Flanagan movie, Hush, is now available to stream, and we will be doing a watch along of all 7 Mike Flanagan movies and then getting together live to rank his movies from worst to best or least best to best. I have my werewolf movie recommendations coming. My birthday is coming, and I will be doing my fave movie from every year of my life, as well as the best movies to come out in 1986, the year I was born. And that is just the tip of the iceberg, okay? We got a lot coming. We got a lot that has already been uploaded in the last month. So make sure you are subscribed and have your bell notification on, and be on the lookout for all of the new content coming your way. And you know, check out the recent uploads. I did my review on Cuckoo, on Trap. I gave you black horror movies you might have missed recommendations. The 15 greatest Scream Kings ranked, my Long Legs review. TV shows I love that were canceled too soon. Tons of content, guys. There is something for everyone. Even if you're not a horror fan, I have not horror content for you, babes. I will see you in the next one. Thank you.
Goodbye. Goodbye.